Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Bonsoir, Professeur Anne Lacaton et Professeur Jean-Philippe Vassal. Welcome to Sky Lounge Prince in the heart of Antwerp for the conferral of the 2021 Honorary degree in Design Sciences. My name is Anke. I'll be your hostess this evening in this beautiful location. This ceremony should have taken place a year ago in a different location, but for reasons we're all familiar with, that wasn't possible. That's why we are so delighted that tonight is finally the night for the ceremony. Honorary doctors Lacaton and Vassal will shortly be teaching a masterclass titled Transform, Reuse, Extend, to do more with less. Afterwards, we will hold a Q&A session to answer the questions you send in through the registration module. But if you have any questions during the masterclass, you can ask them using the chat function on the YouTube channel. Then we will proceed to the conferral of the honorary degree. But first, I would like to give the floor to Professor Alex van Este, Dean of the Faculty of Design Sciences.
Thank you. Good evening to all of you. Madame la professeure Lacaton, Monsieur le professeur Vassal, inspiré à la fois par un profond respect et par la politesse la plus élémentaire, je me permets de vous saluer et de vous adresser la parole dans votre langue maternelle. Bonsoir aussi à toutes celles et à tous ceux qui nous regardent et ou nous écoutent en ligne, où que ce soit en Belgique, en France ou ailleurs. Je tiens à accueillir particulièrement, pour leur présence virtuelle, les plus hautes autorités académiques de notre université, d'autres universités et écoles supérieures, les représentants de la ville et de la vie publique, économique et culturelle anversoise, les nombreux architectes et représentants du secteur professionnel, et finalement les étudiants, les anciens étudiants et les collègues de notre faculté et de certaines autres facultés. Sachez, Madame, Monsieur, que vous avez devant vous un doyen de faculté particulièrement fier, non seulement de pouvoir vous adresser la parole, mais surtout et avant tout d'avoir pu constater que le choix que notre faculté et notre université ont fait l'année passée, notamment de vous octroyer un doctorat honoris causa, que ce choix en est un en plein dans le mille. Les félicitations sincères que nous vous devons ont des raisons diverses. Ainsi, par exemple, il y a quelques semaines, nous avons appris que l'on vous avait décerné le Pritzker Prize, de fait l'équivalent du prix Nobel dans le domaine de l'architecture. Une fois de plus, si vous me le permettez, en plein dans le mille. En fait, l'octroi de ce prix n'est pas seulement une reconnaissance suprême de votre expertise et de votre vision sur une certaine architecture contemporaine, il vous situe en même temps dans la lignée ou à côté des plus grands architectes à renommée mondiale. Vous m'excuserez si je ne mentionne pas ici les nombreux autres prix qui vous ont déjà été décernés dans le passé. Madame Lacaton, Monsieur Vassal, je tiens à vous dire ici que les principes de développement durable, les rénovations fonctionnelles, de pensée écologique et de circularité fonctionnent comme une sorte de fil rouge à travers les départements et les formations de notre faculté. Voilà pourquoi nous connaissons trop bien la question fondamentale que vous ne cessez de vous et de nous poser depuis maintenant plusieurs dizaines d'années. Pourquoi faudrait-il toujours construire nouveau? Elle recèle vos adages bien connus et dans une large mesure et en même temps ceux de notre faculté, je dirais même plus ceux de notre université. Je voudrais dire très humblement que vous êtes des nôtres. Et n'oublions surtout pas l'arrière-fond d'une solide pensée verte et écologique. De mauvaises langues prétendent que vous pensiez déjà vert avant même que l'écologie ne devienne le leitmotiv de nombreux architectes, concepteurs, créateurs, producteurs, stylistes, dessinateurs, inventeurs et autres développeurs. À l'époque, c'était des idées visionnaires. Maintenant, soyons clairs, une fois de plus, il s'agit d'idées en plein dans le mille. Depuis plus d'un an déjà, de sales bestioles empestent et terrorisent notre planète entière, vous empêchant par là même de venir à Anvers, ville d'art par excellence, certainement quand il s'agit d'architecture. Cette visite, je l'ajoute, ce n'est que partie remise, je l'espère. Notre ville connaît déjà une formation plus ou moins structurée en architecture, depuis le XVIIe siècle. C'est en quelque sorte l'embryon de notre faculté. Mais bien avant cela, dès le XIVe siècle, Anvers connaissait déjà des maîtres bâtisseurs. Comme dans le cas des grands peintres, on qualifiait leurs chefs-d'œuvre de pièces maîtresses. De même, vos réalisations architecturales authentiques peuvent incontestablement être considérées, elles aussi, comme de vraies pièces maîtresses. On a beaucoup écrit et spéculé sur les mystères et les secrets des maîtres bâtisseurs médiévaux. Or, vous, madame, monsieur, vous n'avez d'autre secret qu'une créativité généreuse dans un grand engagement social. Voilà pourquoi, chers collègues, nous sommes impatients de vous écouter, sachant que votre masterclass, un enseignement assuré par de vrais maîtres, sera incontestablement, je ne me souviens plus très bien si je l'ai déjà dit, un coup en plein dans le mille. C'est pour nous un immense honneur de vous avoir parmi nous. Merci. And now I leave the floor to the Vice Dean of our faculty, Professor Inge Bertels.
Dear professors, dear Lacaton and Jean-Philippe Vassal, also I am very happy to welcome you. A warm welcome, because indeed, in these complicated times, special moments like this are even more to be treasured. I'm also very happy to introduce you to your work to our colleagues and students. Although I'm sure that for many of them an introduction is not really needed, as your research and design practice is for many of us a reference and a major source of inspirations. But IQUI's guests like you need a proper introduction. So, both of you met as students in the late 1970s during your former training at the École Nationale Supérieure d'Architecture et de Paysage in Bordeaux. And while Jean-Philippe Vassal left France soon after his studies to work in Niger, West Africa, Lacaton started a master program in urban planning in Bordeaux. But she often visited you in West Africa. And it's also there that you realized your first project, a humble straw hut, une cabane primitive, that respected the desert landscape, proposed new possibilities, but simultaneously also honored the luxury of simplicity. In 1987, you established together your architectural practice in Paris, and step by step formulated via research, design, and practice a sharp critique and viable alternative that rethought modern architectural practices, but which also was a clear answer to the glitzy design projects that are often over-consuming materials, the continuous demolishment of historic buildings, and the disrespect for local building cultures, which in addition more than often stimulated harsh gentrification processes. In contrast to your fellows, for over 3 decades now, you advocated for social justice and sustainability by giving priority in research and design to the generosity of space and freedom of use, through the economical and ecological use of materials. By some of our colleagues, your work is labeled as an arte povera, but please do not misunderstand. Your projects, spanning from the reconversion of Palais de Tokyo over the reuse of industrial hangars and the refurbishment of numerous social housing projects, it's a rich gift. A rich and warm gift for its users and a careful but clear statement to make the best use of what is already on site. To transform, reuse and extend. To do more with less. And this is also the title of your masterclass today. by closely analyzing what is already there, to think at once technological, innovative, and ecological responsive, respecting building cultures and creating social awareness, you reconverted our ruins into a rich, social, and durable reality. And so it's no surprise that for your work you already received multiple international awards, like in 2019, the Mies van der Rohe Award by the European Union. And only 2 weeks ago, it was announced that you were selected as the laureates of the 2020 Pritzker Architecture Prize. Also from our side, our sincere congratulations. But also university colleagues welcome and applaud your research by design, building practice and educational skills. You were, and will be even more now, invited all over the globe. And although you must be overloaded, we deeply appreciate that you continue this essential dialogue with students in your architectural studios at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology at the ETH Zurich or the Universität der Künste in Berlin. Indeed, this dialogue is highly appreciated. It's an open dialogue that characterizes the team you are together, the collaborations you set up in practice and in teaching studios, in informing and debating on your plus study for the French government. Et donc, je suis plus que heureux que vous avez tous les deux accepté de donner une conférence et de dialoguer avec nous aujourd'hui à Anvers. Je vous remercie. And while you are preparing to take over, I'm also happy to remind the audience that you can raise your questions during the masterclass via the chat. The questions will be clustered and then discussed during the Q&A, moderated by my colleague Johan de Walsel. So please, you can start your masterclass. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Doyen, pour les mots que vous avez dit. Dear Inge Bertels, thank you also for your words. We are really happy to present and to discuss with you and with young students. And for us, we really believe, and we need to believe, in all the energy and all the creativity of young students that will become the new architects, and that these people will make the life much better when they will finish their studies. So we are very happy to explain some of our attitude and approach in this wonderful, so beautiful work of architect. So we call it make with. There is no more tabula rasa. The city is there. The city exists, and we have to do with it. Make with is about doing the better use of what we already have. We have a lot of already built constructions, buildings, networks, infrastructures. We are often asked, what materials do we use? Is it stone, steel, wood, glass, plastic? For us, it is air, light, sun, life. But even before these elements, even before these materials, the first material is what is already there. It is for us the most essential. It is an existing situation, sometimes sufficient, sometimes incomplete, unsatisfactory, sometimes clearly unbearable. Either way, even the worst, it's important to deal with it. Every existing situation is an opportunity made of multiple elements, of qualities, of capacities that can be integrated, reactivated, reused. It offers already enough material so that it allows to reduce drastically the need for new materials and the need of always using new territories to build. We can invent, we can be creative with this existing. This requires a new approach, accurately observing from inside as close as possible, with a positive approach to discover the invisible qualities, to find the right answers, to keep the memory delicately with care and precision, to take benefit of all the qualities and start from them to design a new project. Adding, joining, expanding, spanning the existing structure, superimposing structures, spaces, and uses is always more promising and interesting than always start over and start from a place beforehand cleaned and emptied. Besides, it is the conditions for ecology, for economy, for sustainability, for affordability, to give more ambition, for lightness and poetry, more architecture. For us, it is a question of kindness. Make with the existing, with everything already there, with people, nature, climate, with economy, intelligence, and kindness, to invent or reinvent with what we already have in hands, to transform, to do more with less. Make with what is available. After my studies, as you say, we went to Africa. I remember this man. Every morning, he was sitting at the border of the street to make and sell some hats. In a few seconds, he was fixing 3 sticks in the ground, threw a cloth over them, and settled down for the rest of the day, only changing the position of his seat in function of the sun and the shadow. You can buy a toy in a shop, or you can build it with your hands, with some pieces of steel, of wire, and pieces of leather or rubber taken from old tires. Even you can make your own handmade glasses, even if you don't need them. This was our first house. It was close to the big river Niger, not so far from Niamey, a big capital. And with some people of the village, it was so simple to build it. Just few branches fixed in the sand, then bending them to form a roof, placing some straw quite open vertically in order to leave the air going through. And some other straw, much thinner, on the roof to prevent the rain to go inside the straw hut. So just a straw hut with a little door, a fence around, and outside 9 branches fixed in the sand supporting a roof in straw. That was our first house in Niger, facing Niamey and facing the river on the sand dune. It took 6 months to find precisely the site. It was 2 days to build it with the people of the village, and the wind took 2 years to destroy it. We keep always this house in mind, just done so precisely, so delicately. Make with the nature, with trees, with soils, with flowers and animals, with everything that is already there. This is close to Bordeaux, in the southwest of France. It is the Lacaton Bay, a very beautiful place with this quiet sea. Generally, when people build close to this place, they cut the pine trees, then they erase and make flat the sand dune, and after that they build a house. And on this parcel that was never built before, we had 50 big pine trees and we have a beautiful sand dune. And then the question was precisely there, how it is possible to come to make a house but not to damage anything? How it is possible to make a house without cutting no trees, without leaving the sand dune exactly as it is? How it is possible to add, to say that perhaps 80% of the quality of the house is already there, and that's what we have to do as architects. It is to add 20% to that situation. So it is to see how a metallic structure can be with very thin sections, can take place in the middle of this forest. Or it is possible to cross the branches and the trunks without damaging any of them. Or it is possible to place some micro piles not to cut the roots of the pine trees or to disturb the bushes that are already there, and then to place a house lifted from the ground where it is possible to go under it and walk on the sand dune as if the house was not here. 7 trees in the number of the 50 that we kept on the parcel cross and go through the house. Just keep it moving with the wind. And for us, it was very important when we were walking on the side to say, but it will be dark under it. And then we think that using the reflection of the sun on the sea could create on these corrugated aluminum panels the light that was missing precisely here. A light that is never the same because it's different if it is low tide or high tide. And then in between, we have the mix of the steel structure and the presence of the 7 existing trees plus the other one around. And then we have really the feeling to live in the nature, to live in the forest and to have this possibility to inhabit, to find some comfort, but to keep the place as it was. Looking at the landscape. Make with the value of a place. It was a little place around Bordeaux, and the municipality of Bordeaux was asking for an embellishment of some places around the city. And we had to work on this one. We went there and we take care of what people were thinking about. And we look at it carefully and we went back to the municipality and say, but the place is beautiful. And they say, no, you have to make a project there. You have to probably change the banks, to change the ground, and we went back again to the place. And after some studies, some research, some interviews of the citizens there, we come back to the municipality and say, yes, we have made a project. And our project is to do nothing because the place is beautiful. And this project was accepted. And the municipality decided to do this project of doing nothing on the place. It is also to see where the beauty is already existing, where the charm is already existing, doing with. Make with abandoned buildings, reuse, re-give life, and invent uses. Close to Belgium, we are here in Dunkirk. And 30 years ago, it was a big harbor with a lot of work, with a lot of energy, with cranes and warehouses and ateliers, and really a very, very intense and dynamic working life. Unfortunately, this energy has been lost. And now it is sad to see that all this dynamism disappears. of all the warehouses and ateliers that were there, only one is there, the most big one, the biggest one, the most important one. It was called the cathedral because it was the place where the workers were repairing the boats. And because there was no more activity, because there was no more work in the harbor, as usual, the decision was taken to say we will make an art center there. We will use this building to talk about the memory of the place and to place inside a cultural activity. So we were in that situation, how to deal with the question of nostalgia, how to deal with the question of memory. And we were thinking of the question of ambition. And for us, ambition was to say, no, we cannot use this big void. The only solution, if we want to talk about ambition, it is to make the double, to make a sort of twin building, a twin brother that will keep the first as it is and will allow to do the program in a new one. Because what is important? It is this void. When we talk about a cathedral, yes, probably it is how it looks from outside, but mainly it is what is inside. It is this volume inside. It is the place where people were working, repairing the boats. All the memory is there. And if we start to fill that with new floors, with new programs, we lose this. So we think that it's so important to keep the voids. And the reason was to build this twin building. It means that this void will have new occupation. That this void will be occupied by cultural actions. And it is also this void that will keep in the eyes of the workers there the memory of the old activities. So then there is a new building. And in this building, we can find the program with the exhibition rooms, with the cinema room, with the storage, with all the administrative parts in this new building that has exactly the same volume, at exactly the same dimension, the same depth, the same height, but is done with new materials, with transparent materials, when the other one is more done with concrete. And on top of this building, this new building, we have the views to the outside, to the sea and to the rest of the activities of the port and the harbor. But from here, we can see far away, but also we can have a look to the other building, the first building that stays there, that keep this void and creates this relation between two elements. Two buildings instead of one. One that allows, a new building that allows to keep the first one empty with this quality of void. In Paris, in Palais de Tokyo, this was this building that was built in the 30s. It was for the international exhibition. And until the 70s, it was a place for the contemporary art, just to the moment where Centre Pompidou was built. And after this period, when all the collections of contemporary art went to Centre Pompidou, the activity of this Palais de Tokyo was mainly about cinema, photography, exhibitions, and the transparency and the light coming from the roof that was done for the art pieces, step after step, starts to be opacified, closed, becoming dark. And in the 90s, the idea was to make a new program there for a Palais du Cinéma. And this Palais du Cinéma starts with studies, with research, and some works inside the building. They start to demolish, to take away some ceilings, to take away the decorations, to take away the partitions inside. And after 2 years of demolitions inside, the project was stopped and abandoned. And then during 2 or 3 years, the Palais de Tokyo stays empty. And when we see it for the first time, it was like that, abandoned, like a ruin inside Paris, with the columns that were totally fragile, with some floors that were unstable, and no electricity, nothing inside, and just some pigeons and rats going through. So a sort of space in the middle of Paris, like a ruin, with this beauty of the ruin, but also the danger of the ruin. The fact that it could becomes a sort of aesthetic of the ruin. And we really understood at this moment that it was very important to try to keep the atmosphere that was so impressive, but in the same time to bring the life again. So with a very minimum budget, it was the possibility to install in the Palais de Tokyo a program for a contemporary art center with a very, very little budget. And in fact, it was just about reinforcing the skeleton and the structure for each column, for each beam, for the floors, bringing again the light, the artificial light, some energy power, and the heating system, and just leaving the public going inside, and the artists making their works. It's enough. And the light was going through, and then the space was open from 12 to 12 in the night each day, and as a free space, as a sort of, with the reference of the Fun Palace by Cedric Price, just to leave the freedom and the life going inside. We bought in Belgium a little van for the ticket office. And in fact, we just opened the doors, and then in security, with just a good heating and ventilation system, natural ventilation system, it was possible to go inside. And since this period, when we opened in 2000, we have nearly 1 million visitors each year, and a number of exhibitions and artists all the time. So this idea to do just what is essential, just the minimum, to try to work with the light, with the life, with the artist, with the possibility of discussions of relation, for us was enough. I will leave Anne continue the lecture.
Make with housing blocks to transform, to reuse, to upgrade, to extend life, to reinvent, to do more with less. So the large modern housing developments, which have been built massively in the suburbs of the cities, all over the world in the 60s and the 70s, are today most often rejected and most often considered as a problem, and more than a problem, as an opportunity. However, at that time of their construction, they carried a vision of the future, optimistic, and a modern way of living affordable to everyone. Unfortunately, after the utopia in the 70s came the disenchantment, until the critical situation that we know today here and there. All these places no longer represent a model of living, and today they are mostly neglected and rejected. And in many cities here and there, their future is currently a big issue that the cities and the countries have to deal with. In France, a national program of urban renovation was engaged around 2005, which was based on the demolition and rebuild of almost 200,000 flats. Since many years, we can see here and there this image of the demolitions of the building, which has been before emptied from the inhabitants. And this is always a very sad image that we have to see. And this program of renovation has a cost of, until now, nearly 18 billion of euros to demolish all these flats and to rebuild less of these flats. So, however, we are convinced that all these places have a value. And these places have a potential of transformation that can be revealed and developed. So it's why at that moment of the launch of this program in 2005, and a little before, we decided together with a friend, Frédéric Druot, to make a research on this subject and to study a number of places which were scheduled to be demolished, because for us it was something absolutely incredible, to unbelievable to imagine that so many places, so many buildings, which are not so old, 50 years old, are so bad that the only solution would be to demolish. And our idea, our goal was to demonstrate that this demolition is a mistake in many, many aspects, and that the transformation is a better solution. So the research was called PLUS, and the subtitle, Large Housing Estates, the Territories of Exception. And this research was a number of case studies, but it was founded on a major principle, which was it's a matter of never demolishing, never subtracting or replacing, but always adding, extending, give more, transforming and utilizing to do more and better. So we studied carefully a number of all these buildings, which looking from outside can appear uninteresting or ugly or out of date. But the thing is that it's important to understand how they have been built and in the context of and also the context of the construction. And starting from this observation, this careful observation of the existing, but always with a positive eye, and not declare at first that it is too bad and that there is nothing to do. It's important to look what is positive and what is missing. And from these buildings, we could observe that looking from inside, what was missing was about the quality of the housing. And then if starting from these blocks with little windows, we could open and more add balconies, it would transform radically these basic blocks into very interesting and nice housing. So for us, it was the idea that, as also we think when we are doing new housing, the principle is to think that every dwelling should have the same facilities as a villa, and how we can transform all these dwellings, which has not these basic qualities, to new qualities, and how we can add these qualities, and how we can bring all what is missing in the existing buildings. So, and of course, we studied very in detail the techniques, the cost to have a very serious and very good comparison of the alternative of transformation versus demolition. And transformation means openness, extension, more space, more light, more freedom of use, and of course, all this for the benefit of the inhabitants. It took long to develop concrete project after the studies, because it was very, very difficult to talk about this study with those who have the decision in hands, with those who are deciding to demolish. And finally, step by step, we could find some projects to do. And this one is a tower in Paris, in the town of Paris. And the city of Paris, for a while, studied the possibility of demolition and rebuilt it. But apparently it was not so easy, and they decided to make a competition that we won on the topic of the transformation and metamorphosis. So here again, what was very important was not to stay outside and to look at the building as a block, but to go inside and to see what was missing, to transform the housing into the much better qualities, while in the same time it's also necessary to solve a number of upgrades, a number of technical issues like better energy and heating system, energy saving, etc., etc. And as in many cases, one of the problems is the apartments are too small, and there is a need of more space of extension. And for this project, as for all the others, the proposal that we did was to make this extension to improve the quality of housing, but at the same time, it's also to maintain all the inhabitants inside. Just 1 second, you asked to switch on the light. Sorry. And that was our proposal for the competition, that first, to find the condition how to expand this building, and second, to make it with all inhabitants inside, because it's really a problem to remove, like in this case, 100 families who, for many of them, they don't want to leave their neighborhood and they don't want to leave their apartments. Many of them were living there since the construction of the place, since many years. So for this project, so we won the competition, and then we started the process of technical studies, but also the process of participation, where we involved all the inhabitants in meetings, first to explain the project, but also to take benefit of their experience to improve even more the project, but also to know which was the situation inside, and especially to make sure that the families were in the right typologies. And indeed, it was not the case, because finally, after this process of participation, we could observe that 40% of the families, they needed to change the typology, either for a bigger apartment or for a smaller. And then we could do this work of relocating, but inside the same block, without having to move outside. We could do this work of relocation of every family in the right way. So from this existing situation, and again, without removing most of the families, the process is to make an extension. In this case, it was 2.5 meters. This extension is made by a winter garden plus a balcony, and then to open the former facade and to replace it by a good transparent sliding facade with double glass, with a good isolation, but always to give an extension and to give a floor to continue the interior of the apartment. And doing this extension, the transformation of the building is itself absolutely radical. And the cost of this transformation is much less than the cost of demolition and rebuild. And there was also, during the process of discussion and participation with the inhabitants, also discussions between the inhabitants and the owner, to solve the issues of rent, which for most of the tenants have not been increased after the completion. So another project in a more characteristic neighborhood of the 70s, in a smaller city in the west of France, Saint-Nazaire, on the Brittany, and there was a process of renovation of the whole neighborhood, and especially one of them we were asked to work on one of them to renovate this 40 dwellings block. So in this case, we did also the same approach as usual, means not to stay outside, but go inside and first to see how is the life inside, how is the space to live in, and how it should be improved to bring through the renovation, not just a technical improvement, but also an improvement of the space and the quality of living. So in this case, we propose also to extend the dwellings. But in this case, one of the problems was that the bathroom were too small. So we decided to build extension around in order to expand the dwellings and to relocate the bathroom inside in a small bedroom. But in this case, it was also very special because, as you could see, the blocks are quite big, but the density on ground is very low. It means that nearly 90% of the ground was not occupied by buildings, but occupied by here and there some green space, but mostly by car parkings, which were not needed, all of them anymore. So we thought that in this case, in addition of only the extension of the 14 dwellings, we could also propose to use in a better way the ground around the building, which was a car parking, and to propose a bigger extension in order to add 40 new dwellings on a plot which already belonged to the owner, so with no cost of a new land, with all the networks on the place, with all the public equipments, schools, transport, and as a way to make a densification at the same time as the renovation. So it's also something that we, with this project, we started this process of also thinking that the renovation of buildings, it's also the opportunity to think about how in the city it's possible to use the ground in a better way and to check everywhere if there is a potential of extension which is not against the individual space, which is not, it doesn't mean to compress more the space to live, but in the opposite is to, by using better the ground, to give more facilities and more generosity for the housing, whether renovated dwellings or new housing. So we did this process of extension, and at the end, this is quite a new building with 40 transform building and 40 new one. So from inside, the process of opening the transforming windows in glass doors, in order to have more facility to go outside with this extension of winter gardens. Bring transparency on the large windows to bring more natural light and also to profit of the view on the green space around. And on the top level, the extension of new buildings, the 14 new buildings, which has been created on the same project. And the most recent that we built, that we completed 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, is in Bordeaux. It's again a large modern neighborhood of 4,000 dwellings, but here in this case, we had to work on 3 blocks of 530 dwellings. This place is very quite special in the city of Bordeaux, because the city of Bordeaux is very low. It's a stone city, while this neighborhood of the 60s is much higher, and it's really prominent in the skyline of the city. So in the 60s, 70s, it was a little out of the city center, but today it's absolutely integrated in the city, and it's really part of the city. So this is a quite an old image of the place, but already we can see that the 3 blocks that we have in front with these orange paintings are the one we have to work. They have not really been renovated since they have been built, and they were full up with 530 families, which was a big problem for the owner, because office of social housing, while the city wanted to demolish and rebuild, but the owner wanted to keep them because it was a good place to live, and also dwellings for quite low incomes, and they wanted to keep these families in that place. So the challenge and what we proposed was to do the transformation again without removing the inhabitants. So it means that it's clear that to do that, it's important to think what would be the work, what would be the project that would introduce the less disturbance of the inhabitants. So again, it's important not to stay outside and to judge these blocks from and to declare that they are ugly. It's more important to go inside and to understand that inside we have 530 families, which all these families, they and this is the opposite side of the facade, the inside. 530 families who gave all of them a value to the interior of the apartments with different decorations, collections of objects, colors, furniture, and so on. And this is extremely important to start with that and to consider that we are not facing a block. We have to work with 500 apartments, and this is changed radically the way the project is approached. So here we propose also to make an extension, because the extension was also the solution to give more space to all these dwellings, but also to solve a number of technical problems of insulation, of fire resistance, and also to take this advantage to open more the facades and to bring more light, and also a space to go outside, what all these dwellings didn't have before. So starting from this existing is just a little piece of one big block made of 3 apartments. And the project has proposed an extension of 4 meters on the south side, which means that all the apartments benefit of this extension. For some of them, it amounts to double the interior surface, and these 4 meters also allows to open the facade and to give this extra space without any defined function, but which is totally free for the appropriation of the families. And what is important is to really anticipate the process, technical process, before in the very early phase of the project, because the construction will be made without removing anyone from the inside. So the process of the construction was studied carefully and at the stage of the competition. And at the scale of one apartment, the process was in a way two different construction actions. So the one was the extension, which was outside, made by outside of the building. So this extension of 4 meters, the remove of the windows and the parapets in order to transform all the windows into large glass doors. And then the new facade, while the second action was inside to renovate all bathroom, toilets, to renovate electricity, and here and there, when it was necessary, also the paintings and flooring. So, and from this action of extension, here it's one dwelling with one orientation that gained these 4 meters in front all along the existing facade, which allows also, like in a villa, like in a house, to change the way of moving inside from the winter garden to every room, from the corridor to the room, and so on. And the process was applied to all the building, to all apartments, and not just to a few of them, because it was important that all the apartments benefit of the same action. So, and the process of construction with this exterior construction of extension and the building after completion, which is a totally new building. So just quickly, this process of construction, which is prefabricated floor elements, which were placed level after level with some construction of something like seven elements a day. And then the day after started for one apartment, not the day after, but after the level is built, we start the process of opening the windows again with people inside. So the first day, it's the opening of the parapets. And the second day is a new glass window. And then the winter garden and the extension is done, and then the family can use it. So the process from more close, the protection behind the window to prevent the dust inside, because the family are still living there. And then after the new glass window, and then it just remains to make the finishes around the old window, and then it's open, and the family can use this winter garden, and it doesn't take long for the family to furnish the place and to appropriate the place in as many ways as apartments. Just to say that it's important to believe also in the creativity of the inhabitants to use the space when it's enough generous to do it. So again, the discussion between tenants and the owner finally arrived to the fact that the rent has not been increased. And all this process introduced this transformation, this radical transformation of the building. Which is now one of the places which is really the inhabitants very much to be there. And also we used the potential of the flat roofs to build another 8 big apartments, houses on the top of the roof, which was also an additional, a very, very small increase of the number of the apartments. Just a very few numbers, very quick, but just to say how the transformation is extremely more interesting than demolition and rebuild. For these 530 dwellings, 100% of the existing was conserved. We had 53% of surface. Doing these winter gardens and with no very sophisticated system, the energy consumption, the primary energy consumption was reduced of 60%. 100% of the building was occupied during the works, no move of the inhabitants, 0% increase of rent and charge. And the cost of this transformation per dwelling was 50,000 euros net, while the estimation of the cost for demolition and rebuild was 160,000 euros. So it means 1/3. And all this at 80% was funded by the social housing company itself, with only 20% of subsidies from the city or from public subsidies. And this is the last image. Thank you very much. Now we are pleased to have the question and to continue the discussion. Thank you very much.
Dear honorary doctors, thank you so much for sharing with us your thought-provoking positions. I think normally we should have a big applause from the audience. And yeah, illustrating them with such convincing examples. And thank you also to remind us that architecture is not about objects and materials, but that objects and materials are just instrumental to make space and to articulate space in a way that allows us for properly inhabit the world, even confronting the hard logics of economy, as you finished also this lecture. Indeed, I could see also that your presentation raised some interesting questions in the chat from the students. We also had some questions in advance that could be submitted. So maybe I would start with the questions, some questions from the chat, and then I jump to the questions that were submitted. Yep. So the first question is from Charlotte, who asked, could you imagine a place without inequalities? So for which the strategy of doing nothing and starting from the existing does not work?
We think that we never find one, actually. So it means that very often we look at the city not enough. It's to be curious. It means that we have a very, very deep glance to the city. It's not only just a moment, it is just to understand what we see. It is to work on what we see, to try to be curious. Behind the wall, you will always find somebody very nice that will talk with you, and you will understand some question and some problem, and you will see all the energy it develops to try to make the situation better. And there is always something fine. And in fact, what is strange, we find that the worst situations are the easiest to transform, because also it's a remark in architecture. Very often we have a very beautiful landscape, and we have a project to do there, and there is a big risk to disturb the landscape. And I think there is not this risk when you work on a situation that is really difficult, where precisely you have to to take the energy, even the negative energy, and to make this negative energy become positive. So I think it's a sort of new glance to the city that is really, really important. For us, it is a total transformation. It is the end for us about the master plans, about looking at the city from above. It is today in the existing city to start with architecture, to find the very small detail that will answer the question, and by answering the question, the city can become better, and then step by step we can improve the quality. So it's never to refuse the difficulties, to say the city is complex, the city is rich because it is complex. And it is because that as architect we are so necessary.
Yeah.
We have a big number of architects, and nobody knows that we have to give them the situations to work and to search from them. So start with architect, and then the city will continue.
Yeah. So not afraid of difficulties and not afraid of writer's blocks. I had a talk with a colleague who told me that designers always think on intention, and maybe they should pay more attention to attention instead than to intention. So to look what there is and see the richness of this.
Yeah. Intentions comes. I think intentions comes later.
Yeah, after
But
the
first,
attention paid.
Start from the attention.
Yeah. I think then we can connect with the question of Jari, a very particular type of attention, when he asks, in terms of doing nothing in the square in the municipality close to Bordeaux, how did the inhabitants influence that design, and how did they weigh on this decision? So it's not the view of the designer, but the voice of the residents? Or?
In fact, it's both. It's our observation, and then we try to also to confront this observation to the discussion with the inhabitants around. And most of the people, they liked their square. They are just to complain about some little details. That, for example, the container for the trash was not at the right place, that the way the cars were circulating was dangerous, that probably the square was not clean as often as they would expect. So they have some very precise criticize to give, but it was not about the square, because in fact they liked the square because they say that they could meet on there, the children could play that, and in fact for us it was clear that as a response of how we can make the square more beautiful, it was not needed to make it more beautiful because it was already beautiful, and we proposed just to solve these little details which were so much important in the everyday life, but not to change the benches for a new design of benches or the old lights for the new lights, because it was not the question. It was not. It would not have added anything more.
Okay, I think
for us, I think it is really. Sometimes we feel a bit sick. We are not in good health. We are a bit tired, and so we go to see the doctor. And we go to see the doctor, and he listens to you, and finally he says, "No, it's not so. Nothing is wrong. You are fine. You can go back home." So I think it's nearly the same for the city. So at some point, I think we need to look better, more precisely, and to see. Sometimes there is really very, very little things to do, and not too much. And this very precise answer is really important, and we should be able to do that. I think when we do this project, it was also a bit critical because it was a time 20 years ago where there was a lot of these plaza that were done in Barcelona, and everyone was going to Barcelona to see the quality of this new plaza, and they were nice. But to do that everywhere, it's a problem. And now we see that because there is a Green Party in the municipality, they take the stones away again and to plant new trees. So at sometimes I think we just need to go with a good sense.
Do you also think then you have a kind of educational or edifying duty to let people see the beauty in what already is, like a kind of shared aesthetics?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
clear. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's important also to see that as architects, making a project is not always building. If we just consider that an architect is just there to build, I think we miss a part of our role, of our task. And an architect is first there to understand a place, to understand a question, to understand a program, and then to see to propose what would be the best response. And sometimes the best response is not to do more, is to say, okay, probably we could do less or we could do nothing. So it's very important to have this view of the role of the architect, which is not just starting the process without thinking what is before, what is behind.
Okay, maybe looking at those cases where you did do something substantial, Tobias asks, what could be the next step if, for instance, apartment expansions require new needs decades from now on? Can there be an expansion of the expansion, and how long can this process go on?
If we look at this period, it's not to say that we like this construction of all these blocks in the 60s and 70s at this moment. Even if at this moment there was really hard situations for living, and they have really improved situation. But after, there was not enough care to these areas. And we see also that there is not so much difference between one of these blocks that it is built in the suburbs of Paris and nearly the same block which is looking at the Mediterranean in Nice or on the Mediterranean coast. The only difference it is that you have big windows and balconies, but the typology behind, the skeleton behind is the same. So we think that if in the 60s and 70s in many places the production was incomplete, it means that we have to finish today. It means that we have to give the maximum of possibilities from the existing situations. So we really think that, for example, in Bordeaux, in the last project that we show, that with this extension of 4 meters, I think we have really...
it's a kind of optimum.
It's nearly a sort of optimum. After that, we can think about the densification of the city, but this densification is never a constraint, is never to give less place to everyone. It is to try to make more floors, to make more places for everyone.
Okay, maybe a final question about something else, another perspective put by a colleague who writes that today there's an increasing emphasis on inter, multi, and even transdisciplinary cooperations. This seems to question the position of teaching practitioners as key players from only one discipline. At the same time, architecture is a broad discipline. Realizing buildings typically requires inter- and multidisciplinary collaborations. How do you see your role as teaching practitioners in terms of discipline? And how do you feel your role and position as teaching practitioners has developed over the years in relation to the increasingly academic environment of the university? Deep thoughts.
Yeah, it's very clear that as practitioners, we have to work with large field of skills. It's clear that due to the complexity of all the issues of the site, of the normatives, it's very important to learn how to work with transdisciplinary teams. And the thing is that normally, as an architect, you have to coordinate all of these people, and because many of them, they come into the process for a very specific question, and then they disappear, and someone comes. And it's also what is very rich and very interesting to be an architect, is that you take the process from the very beginning to the very end, and you have to cross different subjects, different phases of the process, and to call the skill of the different people. And it's very important as an architect to make yourself clear what you know and what you don't know, to make this, to ask the skills you don't know. But probably what is very particular of the role of the architect is that we have to keep in mind the goal, the main goal, because through a so long process with so many people who and different skills who intervene, it's quite easy to lose the goal. And the goal in terms of architecture is always to think about what is the sense, what is the aim of architecture is to create space for living and for people. And it's clear that as an architect, it's probably the main role that we have to keep in the process of the practice, and not only the process of building, because a number of architects will not be also architects as practitioners, but anytime it's probably what is so specific in our education as architects is that we cover a very large field of also of humanity.
Okay, thank you with this nice and hopeful end that there is a goal to keep. Thank you so much for this inspiring talk and masterclass.
It is now time for the official conferral of the honorary degree in Design Sciences. Professor Inge Bertels, the nominator of this honorary degree, will deliver the laudation. After receiving their honorary degrees, Professor Lacaton and Professor Vassal will then say a few words of thanks. But first, let's watch the introduction video together.
Onze faculteit ontwerpwetenschappen wil heel graag een eredoctoraat schenken aan het architectenbureau Lacaton en Vassal. Lacaton en Vassal is een internationaal architectenbureau dat in Parijs is gehuisvest, waarvan de venoten internationaal gerenommeerde ontwerpprofessoren zijn.
Voor ons zijn het game changers in het veld van architectuur. Ze beschouwen architectuur helemaal niet als een soort creatie van het ultieme meesterwerk. En heel vaak lopen architecten in de val om bij het einde van het ontwerp en het einde van het bouwen het gebouw als beëindigd te beschouwen. Terwijl voor Lacaton en Vassal is het vooral een interventie in een soort continu proces van het bewonen van de wereld. En dat is echt een fundamentele verschuiving.
Dat we moeten inzetten op duurzaamheid, op transformeerbaar bouwen, op circulair ontwerpen. En dat is het mooie aan Lacaton en Vassal, dat je die denkbeelden die je hebt over hoe dat je de wereld kan vormgeven, dat je dat ook echt kan realiseren. En zij doen dat op een fantastische manier.
Maatschappelijk zijn ze heel erg belangrijk omdat ze een inclusieve houding aannemen ten aanzien van de maatschappij waar ze als architect dan in opereren en een interventie in concipiëren. Ze hebben eigenlijk een heel uitgesproken geloof dat bewoners ruimte begrijpen en dus ook op heel verschillende manieren zullen inrichten.
Dat is ook echt hun dada of hun adagium, dat je We breken niet af, maar we transformeren. Ze hebben dat ook gedaan met heel veel sociaal engagement. Ze zijn dus bewoners gaan bevragen, daarin betrokken. En krijg je eigenlijk een heel mooie tegenreactie tegen die hele dominante gentrification die vaak renovaties van dergelijke projecten met zich meebrengen.
Die inclusieve houding heeft heel wat impact in een multiculturele samenleving. In een samenleving waar het niet langer de ontwerper kan zijn die bepaalt hoe men dient te wonen.
Lacaton en Vassal maken de wereld elke dag mooier. Het hele sterke aan hun project is dat ze dat niet alleen doen met hun architectuur, maar ook door de bewoners de ruimte te geven om die gebouwen eigen te maken, om die toe te eigenen. En dan wordt het echt, geeft het vuurwerk. Binnen de Universiteit Antwerpen zetten we heel erg in op stedelijkheid, bouwcultuur, duurzaamheid, circulair denken. Dus ja, voor ons is dat een enorme inspiratiebron. Ook een soort van spiegel. Dan zijn we goed bezig. Welke richting moeten we uit? Wat moeten we, hoe kunnen we met ons onderzoek en ons onderwijs eigenlijk ook aan de kaart trekken op maatschappelijk vlak?
Ze bouwen niet alleen die gebouwen, maar ze laten ook een bepaald discours na over de gebouwen die ze gebouwd hebben, waar ze zelf geen vat meer op hebben. En om dat debat en die discussie in de universiteit te brengen, vinden we echt wel heel belangrijk en daar zijn we heel fier op.
Dear professors, dear Lacaton and Jean-Philippe Vassal, with your teaching, research and design practice, you give a clear signal to the international architectural community. Today, demolition because of too limited comfort requirements or changing aesthetic visions is no longer tolerated. But transformation and commitment to sustainable circular economy is essential. As such, you address the core of the societal debate today and show how researchers and designers can and must take their responsibility. Moreover, you also show that this can be done in a humble and respectful way towards students, clients, users, and our planet.
I'm very proud that I, on behalf of the architecture program and the Honorary van der Velde research group of the Faculty of Design Sciences of the University of Antwerp, am able to deliver this honorary degree to Anne Lacaton and Jean-Philippe Vassal, two architects and a couple who made us clear that space is one of the most important keys for a better living together. But before doing so, I will first hand over the box to some other colleagues and students to give them the opportunity to say why it's so important to have them among us.
About 5 years ago, I was invited with students for an international workshop at the ENSA in Nantes, the School of Architecture, that is located in the building you designed. So we were lucky enough to have the opportunity to be and work there for almost a week. And ever since, this building for me has been a reference for what a public building should be today. An open floor in the middle of the building that can be used as a parking, but also as a workshop place or a shelter for the neighborhood. And on top, of course, the Belvedere overlooking the river towards the city. But also, I think this building has different kinds of spaces, different kinds of climates, and proves that good architecture is not a translation of a good program, but is a condition of a good program.
I think Lacaton and Vassal really deserve this prize because they make architecture with such a neatness and lightness, but in a way it doesn't feel cold. For example, they use a lot of corrugated sheets, and the corrugated sheets they give like a certain tactility towards the building, and I think that's very inspiring.
I think the work of Lacaton and Vassal is super relevant also for architecture students because it talks about topics like generosity of space, but also about a care for the existing and the idea of adding on rather than creating something completely new. And it also teaches me that architecture isn't only about its own presence, about its own facade and its own image, but that it really is a facilitator of life, and that we as architects can create or improve the generosity of spaces in which that life can take place. And I think those are super relevant topics for architecture students to think about. And I will get the package to the post office so it can get to Paris.
For all these reasons, I gratefully request the Director, Herman van Goethem, honors you, Professor Anne Lacaton and Professor Jean-Philippe Vassal, with a honorary degree from the University of Antwerp.
Thank you. On the recommendation of the Faculty of Design Sciences and by decision of the Executive Board, the University of Antwerp confers upon Professor Anne Lacaton, Professor of Design at the Eidgenössische Technische Hochschule Zürich, Switzerland, and Professor Jean-Philippe Vassal, Professor of Design at the Universität der Künste Berlin in Germany, the degree of Doctor Honoris Causa in Architecture, Design Sciences, for their internationally renowned teaching and design practice, and for how they use design research and construction practice to encourage designers, academics, policymakers, and clients to take responsibility both socially and economically. Chers collègues, professeur Lacaton et professeur Vassal, vous qui vous trouvez à Paris dans un appartement, dans un coin quelconque, là, dans un confinement un peu complet, c'est assez bizarre cette cérémonie. Nous sommes honorés pourtant du privilège exceptionnel que vous nous faites pour accepter cette distinction. Un grand merci pour ça. We are really honored, dear colleagues, that you are ready to accept this honorary medal and diploma of Doctor Honoris Causa. We sent the honorary medals with the post. They arrived. You can now put on the honorary medals, ce qui en français quand même sont un son un peu plus exclusif. Je vous prie de bien vouloir vous vêtir de décoration. Félicitations.
On ne voit plus la tête.
Honorary Dr. Anne Lacaton, Honorary Dr. Jean-Philippe Vassal, can I invite you to express some words to the audience all over the world?
Okay. Eh bien, nous allons le dire en français. Et Jean-Philippe Vassal et moi-même, nous sommes très honorés de recevoir ce titre de docteur honoris causa. Et nous remercions l'Université de Antwerpen, qui est reconnue en Europe et bien au-delà pour la qualité et l'étendue de ses enseignements. Nous vous remercions de nous décerner cette haute distinction. Nous remercions particulièrement Monsieur le recteur de l'université, Monsieur Herman van Goethem, le professeur Alex Van Est, dean de la faculté Design Sciences, le professeur Inge Bertels, vice-dean de la faculté Design Sciences, le professeur Johan de Walche, président du programme d'architecture, et bien sûr, tous les membres de l'université, les professeurs, les assistants, les étudiants. Nous pensons aussi, et nous les remercions chaleureusement, à ceux qui travaillent avec nous en équipe, certains depuis longtemps, et qui ont contribué très largement à la réalisation des projets. mais aussi à tous ceux qui sont passés un moment, depuis pas mal d'années, qu'ils soient étudiants, architectes, ingénieurs ou amis. La reconnaissance par une université est quelque chose d'extrêmement important pour nous. L'université, c'est là que se pense et se préfigure l'architecture, la ville et la société de demain. C'est là que se fait la recherche. L'université est donc d'une importance capitale. Nous sommes nous-mêmes enseignants et nous observons avec enthousiasme dans nos studios l'attitude des jeunes générations, leur esprit de responsabilité et la façon très juste avec laquelle ils appréhendent les questions et les problèmes cruciaux qui se posent à nous. Cela nous rend très optimistes et confiants dans l'avenir, et la société doit absolument faire confiance sans attendre à cette génération. Quand nous avons commencé les études d'architecture en 1973 à Bordeaux, nous étions seulement des étudiants libres et insouciants, mais très motivés par ce métier d'architecte qui nous semblait très ouvert et créatif. Nous avons toujours gardé cette curiosité des gens, des choses, l'enthousiasme et une façon positive de voir les choses, comme si dans toute situation, il y a obligatoirement du positif, il y a obligatoirement du beau et qu'il ne faut surtout pas passer à côté. Ensuite, après les études, nous avons eu la chance de voyager, et notamment pendant un certain temps au Niger, en Afrique. Nous y avons appris une autre façon de penser l'architecture, plus directe, plus proche des gens, plus proche du climat, plus spontanée. Une leçon de l'essentiel, l'économie du geste et de la matière, l'art et la créativité de la réutilisation, l'économie intelligente, l'art de l'improvisation et surtout l'esprit de liberté. De toutes ces expériences, nous avons compris le sens et la valeur fondamentale du beau habité, comme le sens principal de l'architecture. Cela a marqué définitivement notre idée de l'architecture et notre façon de travailler. D'un projet à l'autre, nous gardons les mêmes convictions que notre rôle d'architecte est de porter des idées, des ambitions, qu'elles soient sociales, culturelles, économiques, écologiques. Créer de la liberté d'usage, de la capacité, de l'espace, de la flexibilité, attacher toute l'attention et l'importance aux gens, aux usages, à la nature, au vivant, à tout ce qui est déjà là, c'est ce qui nous semble le plus essentiel pour concevoir des projets. L'architecture, c'est la liberté, la générosité, les émotions, le plaisir pour tous, c'est le rêve aussi. Merci encore de nous accueillir dans votre communauté.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for these beautiful words.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
I would like to finish this evening by saying a few words of thanks. Un grand merci à les professeurs Lacaton et Vassal pour votre travail intéressant, pour votre masterclass impressionnant et pour accepter le degré honorifique. Thanks also to Rector Herman van Goetem, to Dean Alex van Este, to nominator Professor Bertels and the Faculty of Design Sciences. This was the University of Antwerp's final honorary degree for 2021. Let's hope that we can once again fill the Rector Danis lecture hall in 2022 and of course raise a glass to our honorary doctors during a reception afterwards. I hope to see you there and then.
Thank you.